Starting our first web conference of the course International Business Strategies. The recording has started. Now I'm sharing my screen. This is ECACEN Zona Centro Boyacá. First web conference, International Business Management. My name is Angela Piedad Suarez Torres. I'm the course director. I live in Duitama and today is the 22nd of February 2025. I'm professional in international relations from Universidad del Rosario in Bogotá, specialized from the same university on European studies, and I have a master's degree on international politics from the Newcastle University in the United Kingdom. Welcome to all of you to our first web conference. The web conference is going to be held in English. The course, as you see, is 100% in English. I'm going to try to speak clear and slow. If you have any doubts, any troubles, just raise your hand and I'm going to explain. I hope it's going to be interesting for you. What are we going to talk today? So the course plan that we have for today, after the presentation, is going to be about the internationalization opportunities and process, the company internationalization, the role of diplomacy, and the challenges in internationalization. And at the end, we're going to have a feedback. If you have doubts, if you want to share experiences or examples, it's very important that you're going to participate. I understand that no everybody has may have a fluent English. I hope that you understand what I'm saying, and I hope that you're going to participate and share your ideas. It is very important for you to have these moments where you can try to use your English and maybe to share some ideas. Don't worry, everyone is in process of learning, so we have the right to make mistakes. First of all, we're going to talk about internationalization opportunities. When we talk about internationalization of the companies in today's landscape, why it is important? Why a company wants to go abroad and not to stay in the local market, but to try some other markets in other countries, in other cultures. First of all, is because they want to expand the new market to have new customers and to have more range of customers to access to a new customer basis. So if I have a small company that is selling its products to a small town, maybe 100,000 people, it is important to consider to go through the borders, to try new markets, to get new customers, and to get bigger and bigger. So that's the importance of the internationalization. When a company has a good quality product or a good quality service and finds that there are opportunities in another markets, well, they consider the internationalization process. And the third element is diversifying risk. It depends on how the companies consider taking risks, how important that for them, and if they're able to follow those risks, they want to diversify them. There are some key opportunities for the companies in that process of the internationalization, and those are the emerging markets. In the process of globalization, there are many emerging markets. Every day there are new markets, new countries with, not new countries in the world, but countries which offer their markets to the world. So new opportunities offered for different markets. In the way that the people start to look for new markets and maybe to look to another regions of the world. Sometimes we think that the opportunities for Colombian companies is just maybe the Spanish speakers countries, or maybe the United States, which is a big country, a big neighbor, and is close, and it's relatively close. But we also have countries in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, where we can find some customers. So we have to consider different regions of the world, and every time we're going to find emerging markets. Another key opportunity, digital globalization. Today, through the process of globalization, um, we found like new tendencies, new trends, and digital and technology is the opportunity for companies to find new markets, to get information about new markets, about those other countries that may have those needs that we can supply our products or services. So this digital globalization help us to get more information and to have more access to those customers, those new customers. Another key opportunity is to establish strategic partnerships. Not always the way that we are going to use to go to get to a new market is with our company, with our name. Maybe we can get and find partners, establish partnerships, strategic partnerships, and maybe to diversify that risk and not only assume the risk but maybe share the risk with another partner. And the last key opportunity that we find is innovation. In that globalized world, innovation is a key element that we have to conquer those new markets. So if we have an element of innovation in our product or in our service, it's going to help us to get into those new markets. It is very important. Innovation doesn't mean that must be something out of this world, something very different. No, sometimes if we analyze the needs of the customers, the innovation can be so simple but so useful that is going to make our product very different from those offered in the market, and maybe give us the opportunity to get those new customers and to get a share of that market. So those are the key opportunities that we have in that process of internationalization of the companies that we have to consider when we are in that process. In this process of internationalization and opportunities of internationalization, we have some factors or elements that influence that process and those opportunities. The first one is the market trends. What means the market trends refers to the growth in the consumer demand and the technological advancements. What it means is that when we're going to do a market research about the product that we produce or the service that we offer, we have to look for the profile of that consumer and the needs that that consumer has, and how maybe we have an innovative element considering the technological advancements that we can put like a plus in our product or service. So the needs are created to the people every single day. We as producers, as company producing a product or a service, we can create the need to the people. So, for example, we usually communicate through the fixed telephone in the 1970s, 1980s. And there was someone who created a new phone without the cables that we could carry on everywhere. So they create the need to the people. So they show that If you want to be communicate with people, if you want to talk to someone through the phone, you don't have to stay at your home. You can take your phone with you. And today we are dependent of the mobile phones. So we can create those needs too. And that's why there is a growth in consumer demand. Because the truth is that we can, excuse me, I'm going to change the language for the transcript. Well, so we were talking about the market trends and the growth in consumer demand, and we can also create those needs of the people, of the consumers. And we can use all the technology because through technology we can solve some needs, and we can offer those services, or we can offer those products with that um, with that characteristic that is going to answer the needs of the customers, maybe in our country or maybe in the international market, in specialized regions where we find those needs. So that's why the meaning of this factor of market trends is very important. We need to look at the market trends. We need to look at the needs of the consumers. And in that way, we can answer to those needs with our product and open a possibility in the market that we want to get in. The second factor is the industry factors. What it means or refers to is the sector-specific dynamics and competitive landscape. So we're going to move from the market, which is huge, to the industry. So we're going to analyze first to which industry we belong, what are the dynamics of this sector, how is the landscape, the competitive landscape, how the others are managing, what are the other companies as like mine competing in that environment, and how my product or my service is going to be different. What am I going to offer that makes it different and that is going to get a share of the market? So it is very important to consider this element of industry factors, because sometimes in the process, maybe our product at the end is going to look like similar to the others, but considering those industry factors, we can add something different in the process of making or getting the product, or how are we going to offer the service or the quality of service that we're going to offer. So it is very important to analyze those industry factors to be competitive and to get some advantages on this process of internationalization that may help us to get that difference and to make more possible for us to be in those international markets and to get more possibilities to get into the international market. The third factor is the regulatory environment. This is very important because sometimes we focus only on my product, my service, my company, what I can manage. And then when I'm going to work on an internationalization process, when I'm thinking about getting into new market, I forget about the regulations, the policies, and the requirements that the other jurisdictions, the other countries have for the imports, the quality of the products to sell, the quality of the products to be able to be on those markets. So it is very important to analyze and consider the regulatory environment, the policies that facilitate or hinder international expansion. So sometimes we have to analyze, for example, well, I'm thinking to find and to get a strategic partnership. I have to analyze and consider all the legal requirements to get to be able to build that relationship and to trust the other part, and what kind of documents do I have to get to be legal and to don't have any troubles after. Sometimes we don't consider this regulatory environment in different elements. For example, if I'm considering to export broccolis, if I'm considering to export broccolis to the United States or maybe to Europe, it's not just the quality of the broccoli and how the broccoli is going to arrive in the market, but also there are some rules and some policies about how those broccolis are harvested. If there are children involved in the harvest of those broccolis, because sometimes there are that kind of policies that consider that if in the process of harvesting those broccolis you have children involved, there is a policy that protects the rights of those children. And simply the government is going to say, no, we're not going to accept those broccolis because you're using children to harvest that, and children should be studying, not working. So they're not going to be to conceal with that. So those broccolis are going to be rejected. The broccolis are good, the quality excellent, the size, the color, everything. But the problem is who is being involved in the process of harvesting the broccolis. So it is important for us to consider the whole regulatory environment that involves my industry and my market and all that surrounds my product or my service, because sometimes we don't consider that. And when we're going through the negotiations, through the process, and we're going successfully doing everything and finding partnerships, and then at the end everything is stopped and we're losing time and money because we never consider the regulatory environment of the product that I'm producing, the policies of importing in that product in that country. So it is very important for us to consider all of those elements, the market trends, the industry factors, and the regulatory environment. Do you have any questions for now? You're very quiet. Hello, are you still there? Yes, JK, Juan David.
Hey, thanks for the presentation by now. I just got like the question how those markets like have to create those strategies to hit the points of reaching new customers, and of course for those three types that you say that you explain. But yeah, my question is more into how to create a good strategy to reach those key points to to have success. Thanks.
Thank you, Juan David. Well, there is something very important, which is the market research that we do. Through the market research, I'm going to talk about later, but through the market research, we learn about the customer. So the strategy must be focused on how to get that customer, how to convince that customer that my product is the one that they need. And how am I going to do that? No, getting information about the customer, getting to know the customer. That's the most important. And through that process, we have to consider different elements, including the cultural element that is very, very important, because sometimes in the example that I'm going to show you after, there are some cultural elements that are very important when we're thinking about those internationalization process. So I think that I'm going to answer your question through the rest of the presentation that I have, okay? Well, we continue the internationalization process. There are some stages of the internationalization process in which we have to go through. First, we have the exporting, when we just think that we have a product that we're going to find a company in a foreign country that is going to be interested to buy our product, and that the process that I'm going to do is just to export. I'm not thinking about getting to the final customer in the at the end. Maybe I just find a partner that is going to be interested to buy my product, so I'm just going to export. Another stage is going to, when we think that we consider to establish a foreign subsidiary. So we're going to have a place somewhere in the world where we're going to have business with, and we're going to, in that place, in that situation, we're going to consider more cultural elements to think about how are we going to develop the business in another place, not just to export, but maybe to have more access to the final customer. Joint ventures, as we know, those partnerships that we can build, and the strategic alliances, those partners that we can find somewhere in the world, and we're going to develop our business in another place. So we have the two models of internationalization that are commonly used with the companies. So the first model of internationalization, it's called Uppsala model. The Uppsala model, in brief, uh, talks about incremental approach based on market knowledge, and it's a gradual and experience-based approach. The Uppsala model, excuse me just for a second. Excuse me. Well, we were talking about the internationalization process, and there are two models of internationalization. The first one is the Uppsala model. As I was telling you, those two models have different approaches on the process, how internationalize a company. The Uppsala model is a model that was developed by the Swedish researchers Johansson and Baum in the 1970s. They explain how the firms gradually they increase the internationalization involvement. It suggests that the companies often start with a limited internationalization, and step by step they start to expand their operations in the way that they're gaining experience and knowledge. So it's a process. It's not very fast or immediate, and is as I was telling you before, in the way that you're getting to know the market, the consumer, you're trying to go step by step. So maybe you try first to go to an international fair to show the product, to see if it's possible to find customers and to learn more about the market, to learn about more the customers, to get to know the culture. And in the way that the company is getting more information, that is getting more experience, and it's going to be more possible for the company to improve the presence in the market. So there are some key features in this process of the Uppsala model. The first talks about the incremental steps, which means that the companies, they begin exporting, as I was telling you, because it's a lower risk process and commitment. So the first is just, I find someone in the United States that wants to get my product, and we just go through the negotiation of how I'm going to put the product in the United States, and they pay me for that, and that's it. So I don't care if they're going to sell it, what are they going to do with the product. They just buy the product and they just carry on with the process, but I don't have to do anything with it through the process. In the way that they're going to gain experience, they move to more commitments forms like joint ventures or wholly owned subsidiaries. So this is like a step-by-step process. The market knowledge in this case, emphasizing the importance of acquiring market knowledge. And the companies learn about foreign markets gradually, and this knowledge reduces uncertainty and risks. The physical distance, in this case, the concept of the physical distance refers to the perceived difference between the home country and the target country in the way of cultural, economical, legal, all the elements that are around this. The firms are more likely to enter markets and are similar to their home market due to lower perceived risk. In this process, as we have to get to know more the culture in the country, in this process, the companies try to get first into markets that are more similar to the home market. So they're not going to think about taking some Colombian products to China, but they're thinking maybe more to get to the neighbors, to Latin America, to South America, to Central America, and maybe to consider the Latin customers in the United States and in Canada. This is like more cautious and reserve and a process of internationalization, because what they do, the companies, is go very slow, but for sure. They don't want to risk a lot. There is no high risk in this process because they go step by step. They're not going to have a big risk. In the learning process, the internationalization is seen in these companies as a learning process. So they go by step, they learn how they did, the experience, they try to fix when they have some mistakes, and they go for sure, they try to go for sure. Their firms, they're going to gain knowledge through the experience, and this is going to turn into the future internationalization stages. So they just go very slow, but for sure, they're not going to risk a lot. When we talk about the second model, which is born global firms, in this case, the companies that internationalize rapidly for inception, and today's they use more today's interconnected and technology-driven world. This model was born to maybe, how can I say, it was developed for the companies that they want to do this process of internationalization in a rapid way from the inception, and they want to do it in few years. They don't consider to have a lot of time in that process. So they need to go for sure and to do the things for sure. This concept challenges the traditional Uppsala model. Is completely different because Uppsala is going with low risk and more time, and this one wants to go faster, and of course they are going to consider a higher risk in the process. Not all the companies are going to follow the Uppsala model because maybe it takes too much time to get into the new market. But those companies that want to make it faster, they have to consider that they're going to have a higher risk to get into those markets. Because if we're going to do it faster, we have less time to know the market, to know the customers, to analyze the consequences of what we do, and to make change on those processes. The key features on this model, the first is the immediate global focus. Those companies are designed from the outset to operate in the international market. So it means that we have companies that since the beginning of their creation, they're considered to be internationalized. Maybe in the Uppsala model, there are companies that were conceived just to be in the local market, but in those born global firms, they're born global. So they have been considered the internationalization process since the beginning of the creation of the company, the service, or the product. They often leverage technology and digital platforms to reach global customers quickly. So we have to consider that those companies are created since the beginning in the consideration that they have to internationalize very quickly. And what they're going to do is to use technology, use social media, and use all the platforms that they can use from the technology that we have nowadays to get into those markets that they want to get in. The innovation and niche markets, these firms typically offer innovative products or services that cater to specific niche market. So if I create a company, I create a product or a service that I think and I want to make it international, what I'm going to do is to analyze since the beginning, where are those markets that I want to get in? If I want to create a service or a product, I want to get it to put it into the Asian market, into the European market, into the American market. So I'm designing a product or I design a service that I'm going to offer abroad. So I consider this since the beginning, and of course, that must have an innovative element that makes it is going to make it successful in the other market. The unique value proposition helped them to stand out in the global marketplace. The objective of them is to be in the global marketplace. The use of technology, many global firms utilize digital marketing, e-commerce, and social media to connect with the international customers, bypassing traditional barriers to entry. So it is very important because what they're going to use those companies since the beginning is all technology, all communication to get into those new customers and those international customers that they want to find in the international or global marketplace. The ability and flexibility, born global firms tend to be smaller and more agile than traditional firms, allowing them to adapt quickly to changing market conditions and consumer needs. So again, if they're considering that situation, that process of internationalization since the beginning, those are not going to be robust, huge companies, local established, but they're going to be more light, small, because they're going to focus on that market and they want to use that element to be more, they're going to invest more to be international than to stay just in the local market. The network relationships in these companies, well, is very important. They often rely on the networks and partnerships to facilitate entry into the foreign markets. This includes collaborations with local distributors, suppliers, and other businesses. So they are open to many opportunities, many options, not just to export. They're considering all the options, the distributions, the suppliers, other businesses that they're going to make alliances or strategic alliances to be in those markets. So at the end, those two models are completely different and are designed for different type of companies. So it depends on the type of company, good or service that we offer, that is going to be used the Uppsala model or the Born Global Firms model to be in the process of internationalization. Excuse me. Any question until now?
No, teacher.
Well, I hope that you're getting the ideas. That's what I have. I have more like the main ideas in the slides for you to make it more clear. Well, we continue. Yeah. The steps in the internationalization process. So that's what Juan David was asking. Maybe how do we get to the market? What do we have to do to get to the customer? So when we're thinking to go international with a company, to put it somewhere else in the world, the first thing that we have to do is a market research and selection. Maybe the small companies created for internationalization, they already know where they want to get where they want to go and how are they going to do it. But always, even in those cases, we have to make a market research and selection. So we're thinking, okay, we want to go international and we want to get into an international market, but we don't know which one. So we have to analyze our product and think about different options of countries where we want to go. So we start the market research and a selection. We have to identify those viable markets based on size, growth, and cultural fit. Because maybe we find a huge market with the potential of growth, but maybe our product is difficult to fit into the culture, into the tradition, into the customer. The customer doesn't have the need of that product, or maybe the type of product that we offer that doesn't have any option in that huge market. Maybe we find a small market with some possibilities of growth, but it's the culture is very similar to the one that we know and where we have other product. So it means that we have more possibilities to put our product in that place. So it is very important to make the market research and selection through the information that we can find in many places. It depends where we're considering to put our product, and then we start that market research. There are platforms, there are databases on the internet. Even, for example, Legiscomex has a very good database where we can find information about those markets and the profile of those markets to find if our product has a possibility to fit in those markets. So, for example, those tools are very important to be considered in that process. The second step is the entry strategy development. This entry strategy development means that we have to consider the economic stability, the political risks, the cultural differences, and the legal frameworks. Why? Because maybe we have the possibility to be in an international market, a very attractive market, but in this moment they're going through political and social situation very difficult. Maybe they have an internal conflict, and that makes the risks go higher. So we don't have to look only on the specific market elements, but we have to consider the whole environment and the surrounding of the market as it is. So many times we have to look at the economic stability, which is information that we can find on internet through the different international organizations that they have the informs about that. The political risk, there are some indicators of that risk that we have to consider, also available through different international organizations that manage that information. The cultural differences, which is part of the market research and selection also, and the legal frameworks. So those are elements that we have to also consider in this process. In the entry strategy development, as we have to consider, we have to consider how in this environment are we going to have less risk and more possibilities of success in the type of business that we're going to establish. In the stages, I was talking about export to do exports, maybe to consider strategic alliances, in some cases, joint ventures. So in this entry strategy development, we have to evaluate which of those are more important, are more viable to be considered. So maybe it's a quite difficult market. Maybe it's more possible just to consider the export, or maybe there are possibilities to establish a strategic alliance. So, and in this case, we also have to look the regulations. How easy is for us to establish those strategic alliance? If it's possible to establish a joint venture without any troubles, or maybe if it takes too long to get those documents done, if we can trust in the people, because some countries are considered different, because sometimes the people is more honorable, and in other countries you have to take to be more careful about trusting everyone. So those elements that come also from the culture and the legal part are part of the entry strategy development. We have to consider which is the more suitable in this case, consider the whole environment and how easy is going to be for us to go through that. And the possibilities that we have to succeed. It is important. We cannot consider, oh yes, I'm going to make a joint venture and there is a company that is interested, there is a partner that I found there, but I don't know anything about the legal documents. I don't know how am I going to be protected, how my investment is going to be protected, if I'm going to have like a real opportunity in the market, because I am not sure about the market research. So it is very important for us to consider the different possibilities to the entry strategy development, but evaluating the different elements that are going to be important in the development of the business as it is. And the third key step is the implementation and control, which means that we have to monitor the performance and to adapt the strategy as it needs. So we have to know more about the market, and you must be careful in the process, how the things go through, if it's easy, if it's not, if we're getting success, or if we're going so many trials, if the strategy that we design is going well, or if we have to fix some things to get more success at the end. So those elements are very important in the process. Step by step, but all together, of course, we need to make the market research to select the country, the customers, the market, to analyze and define very well the entry strategy development, and also to go through the process and control the whole process, the implementation and controlling. Any project that we have is not just planning and doing, but we also have to monitor, to evaluate how are we going with the development, if everything is going right, if we have to fix some things that we consider that we should do, and in the process we find that there is no possibility to do that. So it is very important for us to consider those elements in the process that we're going through. In a company, internationalization and environment factors, which is very important to consider that not always the whole process, the success of the whole process depends on us, on our product, on the quality of the product, on the innovation that offers our product, but also in the environment that surrounds the company and the market. So we have some elements that like the competitive advantage factors, like the external environment factors. And also in this case, I have some examples that I want to share with you because those examples help us to understand the differences that we find in countries and how we have to adapt our products sometimes to the market. So first of all, we talk about the competitive advantage factors, which mean the resources, the capabilities, and the innovation. So we have to analyze and to put our product or service facing the competition that we have in this market, and to consider how my product is going to be different and how my product with this element of difference is going to be a solution to the needs of the customer. How am I going to tell the customer that you don't need those products because my product is the one that offers you a higher quality technology, or I don't know, if it's something that you eat, it's healthier, it's cleaner, it's environment friendly. That kind of elements that today make the difference in the market are those competitive advantages elements that we can have from our products or service that makes it competitive in the market. So we have to know very well our product and to see the difference, how my product is different from the others, and why my product is going to get a place in that market. The second are the external environmental factors we have to consider. So my product fits into the market, but unfortunately the country is going through a social situation very difficult that makes the logistic process make it very expensive. So even if my product is really good, if I have problems on logistics, and if it's difficult for me to put it into the market, so it makes it very expensive, and the people is not going to pay for that difference. So it is very important for us to consider those elements that are like surrounding the whole marketplace, the market that we want to get into, because there are elements that may have make different. For example, in our country, in Colombia, there are some elements in the internal situation, like the social, political, and conflict situation, that make the products to get more expensive in some places because of the logistics, maybe because the risk to put the product in some places is going to be more difficult and make very the insurance that we have to pay is very high, or maybe if the process makes it that risk, there is no insurance company that is going to sell an insurance for your product. So those are the elements that we have to consider in the external environmental factors. If there is any element, any third element, external element that is going to get an influence on the cost of my product, the price of the product, and the availability of the product to the final customer. So those are elements that we have to consider. In those external environmental factors, we also have to consider the cultural differences. Sometimes my product is really good. I have a very high quality product, but the problem is that the customers, they don't, for example, if it's something to eat, no, they don't like the taste because it's very spicy, or because it's very simple, very plain, or because it's very sweet. And the culture of the country is not to have many sweets. Or for example, if we want to sell a very spicy food in a place where people they don't used to eat spicy, so I'm not going to sell many units because most of the people they don't used to eat spicy food. So those are the elements that we have to consider when we're thinking about placing our product in an international market. So this is very important to consider because not always depends on the quality of our product, but it also depends on the third elements that are surrounding the market, and maybe our product doesn't fit what the market is looking for. I have an example, a very interesting example. There is an important case study with a very well-known company, which is Starbucks. Starbucks, of course, you know, it's an international label, an international company with a global presence. And of course, they have a product that we can find everywhere in the world, which is coffee. But as you can see, and if some of you just going in Colombia from one region to the other, the coffee tastes different wherever you are. So that means that the customers they're always looking for something different or something different. No, the customers they are adapted to some flavors. They have traditions. It depends on the culture. It depends on many things. That the taste of the person of every region is completely different. What they want is completely different. Some people they just want the black coffee with no sugar. Some people just prefer the black coffee with vanilla in our country. So if we think about the whole world, of course that every country had different profile in the coffee market. So in the case of Starbucks, which has a presence in the whole world, they have faced varying cultural preferences and consumer behaviors in different markets. So there are four elements that they have to consider when they have when they go to a different markets. And the first element was a menu customization. So take the menu and adapt it to the customer. So Starbucks tailored its menu to local tastes. So it looks at the profile of the consumer and adapts the menu to that consumer. In China, for example, the company introduced a beverage like the matcha latte and offered a range of teas. Why? Because of the culture in China, it's more related with local tea drinking culture. So there, yes, they drink coffee, but most of the people used to have tea, local tea. So if we want to be successful, if we want to get to the customers, we have to offer what they want. So they offer the matcha latte and local tea drinks. In Mexico, they serve drinks like café de olla to appeal the local flavors. So it means that in this case, they should have the Starbucks here in Colombia, a coffee that adapts to the needs. So for example, if you go, well, I don't know much about coffee actually, but I see that maybe in Oma or Juan Valdez, they offer a coffee that is very sweet with panela and have clavo and canela. So it's the campesino, I think that is the name. And that's the type of coffee that most of the people like. But even some people they just like the black coffee without sugar. But a vast number of customers they like the campesino coffee. So in this case, Starbucks had to make change to the menu to adapt to the customers, what they used to have, and how my product is going to fit that customer. The second element was the store design and experience. So if you go, for example, I'm going to change a little bit just to show you that, just like the difference. In the case of McDonald's, we have like a general idea of how the restaurants are, the McDonald's restaurants are, and the furniture is always the same, the colors. But in the case of a Starbucks, they design their stores to reflect the local culture and architecture. What they want is to make it more personal, more attractive to the people, not that impersonal, but to feel like kind of at home or something more related to the culture. Just the experience to get into the place. So in the case of Italy, what they do that they create the upscale reserve roasteries that emphasized in the craftsmanships, blending in the local coffee culture rather than simply replicating its American store format. So made it more cozy, more related to the culture. So they get into the Starbucks, but it's more an Italian Starbucks and not the American shape of an Starbucks. So that makes the people feel more comfortable and feel better getting into the Starbucks. So it's not that American company here, but oh, that makes it more, in the case of Italian, more Italian style. So that helps a lot to the customer to feel comfortable and to get what they want in those places. And the third element that considers a Starbucks is the community engagement, which means that the company engages with the local community through initiatives like supporting local farmers, sourcing ingredients locally when possible, and this fosters goodwill and enhances its brand image. So if we go to Starbucks, I think that they have some maybe Colombian products, or they also sell Colombian coffee with a special uh, brand image, and they try to go through that um, how could I say, like that identity. They try to fit to the Colombian identity in our case, and to show that we have Colombian coffee, we have those mugs with the Colombian images, and that makes it more familiar to the customer. So the customer is going to accept it more easily. And the fourth is the cultural sensibility, which in regions where coffee culture is deeply ingrained, like in Italy, the Starbucks emphasizes quality and experience over just fast service. This approach helps them align with local customers' expectations. Maybe selling a coffee in the United States, they just want to have, with so many different types of customization, that you can have your coffee with almond milk, and with syrup, with flavors, with chocolate, with cream. Well, so many options that you can have in a Starbucks. But maybe in the case of Italy, they're more traditional. Um, they really enjoy the experience of drinking a coffee in a cozy place, where they want just to give that sensibility to the customer through the product and the services, not just um, something fast that you say, I want a coffee with this, and thank you, bye, that's it. Maybe that's American way. And the Italian is more sociable, and they really enjoy the quality. So they're going to feel if the coffee is tasting good or bad or different. So they have to focus on that, on the cultural, excuses, on the cultural sensibility. They have to analyze the customer. So Juan David, when you were talking about how am I going to get into that market, the first thing that you have to do is just to know the customer, what the customer used to do, what's the culture of the customer, what they like, what they don't like, what they prefer, how they like it. Um, and that's very important for us to consider which is the market niche that we want to get into and how easy it is for us to get into that market niche and what are the possibilities that we have to get into that market niche. So in this case, it's not just a Starbucks, but many international companies, they have to adapt. For example, McDonald's had to adapt when they wanted to get into the Indian market because McDonald's, what do they sell? They sell hamburgers from beef. In India, they don't eat beef. What did they have to do? They have to customize their menu to the taste of the Indian people. So you're going you're gonna have McDonald's in China or in India or in Europe. You're not going to find the same menu. If McDonald's have here 5 options of hamburgers, you're not going to find the same 5 everywhere. It depends. If you go to Europe, where maybe in my case it was in Holy Week, they offer fish sandwiches. So you're not going just to find chicken or beef, but they offer in fish sandwiches. Have you ever considered to go to McDonald's here and find a fish sandwich? No, never. But maybe because they are more religious in that way and they care more about having fish and it's more common to have fish in Holy Week, is more common to find that kind of sandwich in Europe than in Colombia, for example, or in the United States, where the menu is more American way. So those are the elements that we have to consider when we're thinking in a process of internationalization. I'm always telling you it depends on the product or the service. We can go through an international process with a product or a service, but we have to analyze very well the market, very well the environment, the competitive advantage, the innovation, the technology, how are we considering the risk, if we want to risk a lot, if we want a low risk. Those elements are very, very important to consider in the process of internationalization. It's not just to think that my product is the best and is going to be sold everywhere. No, we have to let us know and learn a lot about the culture, the customer, what the customer wants, what the customer prefers, and how am I going to offer a solution to that need that the customer has. Do you have any other examples that you want to share in this process of internationalization of the companies? There are many examples. I don't know if you have one in mind that you want to share with us today.
Tutor, so with the mentioned steps, I can give us an example to Sahu is a company was born as an alternative to generate Edward hangers that were marketed in the country in our country. So with the external environment, it's really important to know the negotiation strategies, story and success, the successful trajectories and its founded in 26, 20, 2016, sorry. And
2016.
2015 and significant rapid growth in the international markets for the negotiation and export process. Sahu is influential through its website and social network. Its recognition strategy that has allowed it to create contacts with other countries for the distribution of its product. I think in the economic and cultural factor, Sahu is one of the most innovative Colombian enterprise because the revolution in the Edward accessory industry.
Thank you, Ariana Lucia. Yes, it's the use of technology is very important, and if we use in a good way the social network, the use of WhatsApp, um, if we can use a very influential strategy, is going to make it successful. So we have so many, as you were telling, there are so many examples of companies that maybe they just focus on one strategy, but they develop it in a very good way that they succeed and they get access to international markets. With the situation that we had with the COVID closure of everything, so many companies were developed because they wanted to get to the customer to continue selling, and they use all those communication possibilities that we have today. So we have many examples, as you were told, that using very good strategies on WhatsApp we can get through different markets, but using a good strategy and knowing very well the customer. That's the most important thing. We have to know very well the customer. Thank you very much. Someone else wants to share an experience? Well, we continue. We're almost at the end. Now we're going to talk about the role of diplomacy, and we have different examples nowadays. In the case of the role of diplomacy opening the process of opening markets, and how can we get through new markets, and the diplomacy is maybe a tool that help us a lot. In diplomacy, we have to think about the influence that the governments or the relations of the governments have to facilitate these market possibilities, those opportunities. So the diplomacy impact directly on the access to new markets. Why? Because the governments, they develop different strategies for the country or the companies to have access to different markets in the world. The government has the possibility to close the market, to close the country just to internal production and internal consumption, or to open open the country, open the market, just not just for exporting, but also to import. It is not possible for a government just to open opportunities to export our products and not to import. It's a two-way relationship that we have to build in this case. So the diplomacy impacts in different ways. One of the options or the processes that the governments develop through diplomacy is to establish international trade agreements. There are different types like bilateral, multilateral, regional. And the benefits of these international trade agreements are the tariff reductions, to enhance the market access, and the regulatory cooperation. Maybe we've seen in the news for maybe more than 20 years, people who think that the international trade agreements are good and people who think that they are not. In any case, what I can tell you is that international trade agreements are a tool that help us companies to go to the international market, to be part of the international market. As we have benefits, we also have some consequences, but those consequences are results of the process of negotiation. So the problem is not the trade agreement, the problem is how we negotiate the trade agreement. And who negotiates the trade agreement, and what are the interests in the process of negotiation of the trade agreement. The international trade agreements, they look for easing barriers to trade, providing legal protection and fostering innovation, which is the case that we have, for example, today with the trade agreement between Colombia and the United States. It's a trade agreement which is in this moment is very important for many products that are being exported to the United States. 80% of the exportations go through to the Colombian go to the United States. It's a lot of products, a lot of companies, and a lot of people. So, and it's not also exporting. Through the process of the international trade agreements, they also establish conditions for the companies to establish different alliances, strategic alliances, joint ventures. So it's not just opening the doors to export, to take our products and services to go to the United States, but also to import, but also to establish alliances. So it's a regulation, or as it says, regulatory cooperation is a regulation that establishes how those joint ventures, alliances can be done. And of course, that they're going to have a support from their governments. So it is very important for us to consider that international trade agreements help to develop the international commerce, the international negotiations. But the most important for every country that signs those international trade agreements is how they're going to negotiate, how they negotiate those agreements, and how the different sectors in the economy are going to be ready to face those challenges that's fixed, because those are challenges. If I want to export, it's a challenge for me to get the quality of my product to put into the new market and market abroad that maybe have a high standards of quality. So those are elements that we have to consider, and not think that the international trade agreements are evil. Those are tools. We have to know how to use them. Another options or strategies that the governments have through the diplomacy to open those markets are the trade missions, the negotiations, building relationships with foreign governments. So the trade missions are possibilities of getting a group of companies to go to a trade mission to another country, to have access to the market, to get to know the market, to get to know the sector, the industry, to learn more about what they have, and to consider if it's possible for my company to get a place into that market. So if I produce or if I'm the owner of a bakery, if I have a bakery, and there is an option of a train mission to Europe, maybe to France, where they're really well known for the quality of the bakery. For me, it's very important to get to know how they do it, why their products are really good, what's the type of raw materials that they use, the quantities that they use. I don't know, maybe the technology, the flavors, so many things that can influentiate the quality of the product. That is very important for me to get to know what they do, and maybe to consider some innovation in my product, maybe just to get only maybe to get more customers in my environment, or why not maybe to consider internationalization process of my bakery. So it is very important for us to be part of those trade missions as a company, because we can have the access to different environments and to learn more about the sector, the industry that we are involved in, and that help us to improve the possibilities to get into the international market. So those are elements that the diplomacy and the governments develop to give possibilities through the process of internationalization. The agreements, they, as I was telling you, the agreements are very important because they help to make it more easy to. The barriers are there are less barriers to entry to the market. Sometimes when there are no um, trade agreements, it's more difficult for us to get a product into another market. When there is a negotiation, they have to consider the different elements that are going to be established on these barriers and how the barriers are going to be lower and going to be easy for our products to get into that new market. So that's why it's important, as I was telling you, how they negotiate, what they consider. So it is very important that. Also, it is very important from the trade agreements, the legal protections, as I was telling you, it's like a regulation that helps assures the company to have a legal protection if they want to establish a joint venture, an alliance. So it is very, very important, those documents, because it's the support that you have from your government, but also from the other country's government that is going to make you make the situation more reliable. In the case of diplomacy in general, we can consider that the diplomacy helps to solve conflicts, promote political stability, to create a safer environment for trade. And a stable political relationship is going to reduce the risk associated with investing and doing business in foreign markets. The development of missions and delegations, the governments in general, they often organize those trade missions to promote local businesses abroad, to connect them with possible partners, customers, and investors, because it's not always going to export, but maybe to establish an strategic alliance. And the missions provide valuable networking opportunities. So it's very useful to be part of an international mission. But also the governments in this role of diplomacy, they also have agencies that offer resources and support to help business to navigate into the international markets, including information or regulations, market research, and funding for export initiatives. In this case, in the case of Colombia, we have ProColombia. ProColombia, it's a governmental agency where you can go and say, hey, I produce avocados and I want to export avocados because I have a huge production of avocados. I want to export avocados to the United States. What do I have to do? And ProColombia is going to explain you the whole process of the export and how, if you want to be part of an international mission to the United States, if you want to go and have relation with some possible partners, or if you want to get the contacts and start the contact from now on and establish that relationship and to know more about the market and maybe to analyze how possible it is for your avocados to be in the United States market. So ProColombia, as I was telling you, is one of the other tools that we have to get more information about the markets, to learn more about the international markets, and to be able to make that market research that we really need to have when we're considering the internationalization process of the companies. So it is very important for us to analyze those elements of diplomacy, because those are elements or tools that the government give us to go through the process with reliable information, which is very important. Finally, we have the challenges in internationalization of the companies. So there are some common obstacles and mitigation strategies and future trends. So in this process, we're going to find different situations that we have to overcome. And in those common obstacles, we're going to have cultural misunderstanding, legal complexities, and economic fluctuation. This is very important to be sure that we're going to face. That's why in the case of cultural misunderstandings, it's very important, and we emphasize very, very much, telling you that it's really important to know the culture where we're going to deal with or do business with. The culture makes us different. What we like is different depending from where we come from. So if we don't understand, if we don't learn, if we don't do a profile customer, we don't have any information to make business or to take our product anywhere in the world, because we have to know that. If Starbucks gets to Italy with the same product and the same store that they have in the United States, they should have to close very soon. If McDonald's arrives into India with the beef hamburger, I think that in 1 or 2 weeks they should have closed their stores. So we really need to get to know the culture, to get to know the people, because that from that element depends the success or the failure of our process. The legal complexity is not the same to deal with legal documents in Colombia or in the States or in Europe or in Africa or in Asia. Cultures are very different. The cultural and legal complexities are very related. So culture designs how the jurisdiction and the legality works. So if we know the culture, we should have learned, we should learn about the legal complexities, how the law works, how important is the law, how many documents do I have to do. The legality of everything is very important, because you can have a successful business, but if you don't know anything about the laws, you can lose everything. So it is very important, this element of legal complexities. And the economical fluctuations, even if in our country, we depend on how the economy fluctuates. So if we don't care about that, and we think that we're going to do it very well, but the economy is trending to go down, we have to analyze what are we going to do, which strategy are we going to develop, and how are we going to move, because we cannot stay in a market where the economy is going down and we think that everything is going fine. So those are elements that we're going to find always in the process, and we have to consider and always visualize how are we going to deal with some difficulties that we can face. Mitigation strategies. Developing cultural intelligence. We have to know the culture. Legal preparedness. We have to know legality. And risk management plans. We have to know how are we going to move if the economy is going to fluctuate in a negative way. So it is very important for us to consider those obstacles, but also to have like the plan B, or how are we going to face those situations. Finally, we have the future trends. The future trends we know is the digital transformation, the rise of the e-commerce and the digital marketing. So how are we going to be familiar with these trends, and how are we going to take advantage of them to make the process of internationalization using the technology, the communications, using all the tools that the today life bring us to be successful. And the growing consumer demand for socially responsible practices. Today, the people is looking for products that are environmental friendly, that protect the people, that protect the environment, that protect the children, that is healthy, that it has no problems for my health, that is no poison. So those are elements that we have to consider in the design of our product, our service, and how different is going to be our product compared with the competition that we have in the market, and how are we going to take those elements to make us different and to offer something that is going to answer the needs and the preferences of the customer. So it is very important to consider those future trends, and for sure every market has different trends, and we have to analyze that from the point of view of the culture, of what they like, what the customer like, what they prefer. So it is very important to consider those challenges, the obstacles, how are we going to mitigate them, and how are we going to take advantage of the future trends to make us different in the market and to have more possibility of success. Do you have any questions until now? You've been very quiet. Yes, Catherine?
No, teacher, I don't have any question.
Well, I really hope that you have understand everything that I was saying. I'm going to leave you the recording because it might be useful for you. I have some announces to make you today. I'm going to make it in English and Spanish to make sure that you understand. The first, I had sent you in Spanish an email through the platform that it talks about encuesta autoevaluación, survey of self-evaluation. It is very, 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 very important for us that you fill that survey. It is very important because the program is going through the self-evaluation process, which means that every time and time the program needs to accreditate at the Minister of Education. So we have to go through the process of self-evaluation for a long time to get all the documents, all the data to present to the minister. And one of the elements that we need to know is the information that you can, the feedback that you can give us to the program. So this survey is very, very, very important for you. And we're in this process. And in the way that students don't do that, is going to take us longer to get all the data. So please get into your email. There is a link. And also in the forums, in the general forums, you also have the information. You have the link. It was sent by me. It was sent by the tutor, Jose Jesus Freile. So please answer the survey. And the second one, the second announcement is Prospecta. As you know, we have our International Congress in May. It was changed since the last year. And this time is going to be developed in Barranquilla. It's going to be 21st, 22nd, 23rd of May in Barranquilla. So we want you to make the invitation to be part of it. As always, is going to be very interesting with international conferences. So if you are close to Barranquilla and you can go, you're welcome. And if you live far, far away, as I do, you can do it online. So you can watch it online. So we are inviting you to be part of Prospecta this year in May. So for you to look at your finances and be part of it. Well, en español, para que no, por favor, les pido el favor. Estamos en un proceso de autoevaluación del programa. Este proceso de autoevaluación, ¿para qué nos lleva? Para una renovación de registro calificado, es decir, que sigamos funcionando como programa ante el Ministerio de Educación. Estos procesos no se pueden hacer de un día para otro. Los procesos toman un tiempo para poder recolectar toda la información, hacer los documentos y poderlos presentar al ministerio. Esta encuesta de evaluación es una información como un feedback que ustedes nos dan al programa y es muy importante que la mayoría, si no el 100% de los estudiantes nos llenen la encuesta. Entonces yo les pido el encarecido favor, si quieren envíennos o cópiennos en el correo o en el foro, digan, mire, yo fulano de tal ya hice la encuesta. Ayúdenos con esa encuesta de autoevaluación que es realmente muy, muy importante para todos los procesos que está adelantando el programa. Entonces, es súper importante. Yo les envío un correo interno con la información y con el link. En el foro general también está en las noticias, también hay un foro solamente para eso. El profesor José Freile también les compartió eso. Entonces, para que por favor encarecidamente ustedes y rueden la bola con sus compañeros de negocios, necesitamos que todos los estudiantes nos ayuden con esa autoevaluación este fin de semana, por favor. Y la segunda es la participación en Prospecta 2025. Ustedes saben que es nuestro congreso internacional con conferencistas internacionales de muy alto nivel y nosotros los estamos invitando a ser parte. Si ustedes viven cerca de Barranquilla, bienvenidos porque es en Barranquilla este 21, 22 y 23 de mayo. Si no, pues lo hacemos en línea, podemos participar en línea. Entonces, por favor, muchachos, muy invitados a Prospecta y encarecidamente llenen la encuesta de autoevaluación. I hope that I've been clear, that everything that we were saying today, it was useful for you. If you have any question, there is no problem. You can contact me in the case that I'm your tutor or Jose Freile, which is the other tutor. Any trouble that you have, you can contact me. You can send me an email or through Teams. Also, you can contact me. So I think it's a good time, 11:35. If you don't have any questions, we finish here, and thank you very much for being part of this first web conference of our course.
Thank you very much, teacher.
Have a nice weekend, all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for this useful web conference, Doctor. Without doubt, its management is ideal to understand the look of Usenet as it's international. Already filled out the survey. Thanks for what you handled in the program. Without doubt, this course is very valued, and your explanation has been clear. And I think that the development of the question in this phase, without the explain, it will be easier to understand. Happy Saturday for everyone.
Thank you, Ariana. You too, for you too.